Guys, welcome back. It is Racer X, and today I actually want to put a little video together about just how loud some of these cars really are. So I want to tell you guys a little bit about how I'm going to do that. I will do that here momentarily, but if you guys are new to the channel, we've got lots of fantastic content coming up here very soon. Make sure you slap the subscribe button down here in the corner, and we are off. We got the 1,000 horsepower Hellcat. So what really is loud? Obviously, we're talking about something that's completely subjective. So you know what? We'll just use the old decibel meter. I'm actually using an app called Decibel X, of all things. It seems completely appropriate for this. So let's take a look at some of these cars and find out just how loud they are. It should be a fun little experiment. Well, so there it is. Decibel X right on my phone, and it's free. You gotta love that. So we'll try it out, see how it goes. So first, I think it's gonna be important to kind of get a baseline, right? So how much sound does a normal car put out? Well, behind me, I've got my little 2010 Daily, my little Nissan Maxima. And just for the heck of it, I kind of want to see how loud this car is, kind of give us a little bit of a baseline in terms of how loud is just an average car. So let's take a look at that. All right, guys, so on startup, you can see this car's pretty quiet. 85.6. So there you have it, 85.6 decibels on startup. Now let's rev it a little bit and see what we can get to revving the car. All right, now we're gonna get some revs from the Maxima, and we're gonna find out what this thing makes when it's really revving out. So let's see what it does. 107. So actually kind of surprising. 107 is really not too bad. Maybe the Maxima's I don't know, a little bit of a beast. It's hard to say, but we'll check some other cars here and see what that really means. Okay, so now that we've got a baseline using the Maxima, I think it'd be fun to maybe check out some other just household type items just to kind of figure out how loud they are. Just kind of check this thing out and just let's just check a few other things to see how loud they are, and then we'll compare it to the SRT 392 that's modded, and then also my 1,000 horsepower Hellcat. So here's kind of an interesting item to test. This is actually my air compressor, and it's pretty loud. I mean, the thing makes a hell of a lot of racket. I don't like starting it up at night because I feel like I'm gonna piss the neighbors off. But let's actually see how much sound this makes on the decibel meter, and that might give us a little better gauge. Let's take a look here. Okay. All right, so that was 98.6 decibels. I will say it's pretty loud sitting next to it. So that kind of tells us that even the Maxima at rev is louder than the air compressor. Next up, let's try out the lawnmower. Let's see how loud the lawnmower is. Unfortunately, I need both hands to start the lawnmower, so I'll start it up and I'll let you guys know what the result was. All right, 93.8 on the lawnmower. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I'm ready to go try out some real cars to see what kind of noise these things really make and really what that compares to in terms of like real world sound. It should be pretty interesting. Okay, so I'm actually at a park waiting on my buddy Rob, who's got his beautiful white 392, his SRT Charger. And you know what? We're going to get a baseline on his car too. We're going to see what it fires up at, certainly from a cold start. I guess it would be a warm start since he's driving it over here. But we want to kind of see what it idles at and then what it revs out to be. And we'll compare that to, say, what the Hellcat does. Well, guys, I have arrived. Found my good buddy Rob. There's his car. Of course, here is my car. And you know what? We're going to put these two cars to the test. I want to see just how loud they are. And keep in mind, obviously, he has a 6.4 liter naturally aspirated motor. I've got the 6.2 liter supercharged motor. And, you know, obviously both of these cars are modded. So a couple of different qualifiers before we even get started. Obviously, my car, I do have the regular exhaust manifold. However, I have no catalytic converters, and I have what's called a tunnel ram, which is a fully welded custom system that basically just has a resonator in it. And that's partly why my car is so loud, not to mention the fact that the thing makes like 20 pounds of boost and about 1,000 horsepower. So we'll see what this thing actually makes at rev. We'll have Rob actually help us with that. And then on his car, he actually has 1 7/8 inch long tube headers from Stainless Works, high flow catalytic converters, and an S-tube exhaust from Stainless Works, which essentially is like, it's an exhaust that actually has a resonator in the rear, a little bit like a touring exhaust, but not exactly. But it still sounds really, really healthy. I don't think it's quite as loud as the Hellcat, but it still sounds really good and throaty. So I'm really looking forward to comparing these two cars, seeing just how much sound they make, and we'll see which one you guys actually like better. Do keep in mind the camera doesn't always kind of translate in terms of how good it sounds in person, but we're going to give it a shot anyway. I got to get my little trusty phone ready here. Here we go. All right. Here we go. 103.3. Nice. All right, guys, now we're going to give it some revs. Let's see what she'll do with the... Here we go. Get a face full of exhaust here. Wow, 117.2. Nothing wrong with that. That thing sounds healthy. Definitely sounds healthy. All right, so it's time for us to get a warm start on the Hellcat. Let me get the trusty meter here ready. This might be a little painful. All right, here we go. See how she sounds here. There you go. 113.2. So not too shabby. All right, here we go. We're gonna give it some revs now. This ought to be painful. Here we go. Oh God. Oh, that is so loud. Oh my gosh, my ears hurt. 124.3. And I'm going to need some ear protection. Good. Okay, so I did just get some revs in the Hellcat, and my eardrums are feeling it. I've never sat behind a thing when it revs. And do keep in mind, guys, on both of these two cars, they actually won't rev past like 4,000 RPM when they're just sitting still. It's just something built into the way these cars are tuned. So just keep that in mind. That was at 4,000 RPM. Obviously, as we know, this car will rev out to about 6,500 RPM in terms of the way this thing is tuned. Matter of fact, the white car, the same thing. That car will actually go out to maybe 6,500, 6,600 RPM. But still, at 4,000 RPM, these things make some pretty incredible noise. Okay, well, that was loud, and we're probably going to get the cops called on us. It was that loud, but that's okay. I think we're actually going to go get a couple of flybys real quick to see what these things sound like when you're really getting into it. It should be pretty cool. Well, definitely time for a little flyby action. So here we go. Okay, yeah, so that sounded like a jet going by. It sounded pretty damn good. I'm a big fan, not gonna lie. Now it's time to see what the Hellcat sounds like. It should be pretty cool. Oh my God. Now I know what my wife feels like when she says she's filming it mid-track and the car goes by, and it is ear shattering because that car is so loud, but it still sounds good. I really like it. Now, safely back in my office, I want to talk about the results of our testing today. So what did we find out? Well, one, that little Decibel X app is pretty cool. I don't know how accurate it is. It seems to be somewhat accurate based on my research, but it's something to try out. Why not, right? So what did we find out? The air compressor registered at 98.6 decibels. The lawnmower 93.8. So the compressor is actually louder than the lawnmower. So something to be said there. So when we actually start to compare it to cars, what did we figure out? Well, the Maxima, which in my mind is just kind of your everyday driver type car, was 85.6 decibels at idle. Well, to me, that is pretty darn quiet. So obviously that car is bone stock mufflers. It's not a loud car. Things change a little bit on that car when you rev it though, because it actually revved out to 107 decibels. So I want to start jumping into what the 392 and the Hellcat did, but before I do that, I want to actually talk a little bit about what decibels kind of mean. Obviously, decibels are how we measure sound. One quick qualifier is that something that is actually 80 decibels is 10 times louder than something that's 70 decibels, and so forth and so on. So it kind of goes on this exponentially increasing scale. It's not just this slowly sloping scale. Things get exponentially louder the higher up in the decibel range you go. So you just need to keep that in mind. So what did we find out when we tested the modified 392 with that beautiful stainless work system on it? Well, we found out that it idles at 103.3. So the idle of that is almost what the Maxima revved at. The Maxima revved at 107. The 392 just idling was 103.3. So definitely a big step up in terms of sound. And then, of course, the 392 revved out to 117.2. It jumped up quite a bit when you actually got some revs. And do keep in mind, that is not full rev. That's only 4,000 RPM. If the car could continue to climb up to what its potential is, like when it's actually in drive, it may have been even louder than that. But 117.2 is a pretty significant number. So when I did some research, what does 117.2 decibels equate to? Well, essentially that, based upon all my research, it's like a rock concert or even like a really loud emergency siren. Anybody that's ever been up next to one of those knows they're pretty darn loud. So essentially the 392 can put on its own rock concert, and that is definitely loud. And for anybody that's ever been to the drag strip, I think we realize that those cars can be extremely loud. But keep in mind, we are talking about street cars here, and that exhaust actually is not as wild as he could make it. He's actually got it on there. It sounds fantastic, but he could actually make it much louder. But compared to a normal stock car, it is significantly louder and more aggressive sounding. Now we jump up to the Hellcat. So the Hellcat actually just at regular idle, 113.2. So the Hellcat at idle is actually about as loud as the 392 was at full rev. The full, like I said, 117.2 was the full rev of the 392, 113, so about 4 decibel difference between the two. So essentially, just the Hellcat idling is just about as loud as a rock concert. Pretty cool. But things change quite a bit when you rev that car. And obviously, I was right between the two tailpipes, which was pretty stupid on my part when we were actually doing this test, and it registered 124.3. So what does 124.3 actually equate to? Well, my research tells me that that's actually 125 is where pain actually begins in the ear. It actually physically causes pain, and I can fully attest because my ears were ringing all night, and it was almost painfully loud. Also, 120, they say, is like a loud clap of thunder. 130 is actually a jet taking off from an aircraft carrier from 50 feet away. So the Hellcat sits right in between those two. So that gives you some perspective as to how loud that thing is, and just why my neighbors love me so much. So anyway, it was just a fun little comparison to talk about about these cars and just compare and just do sound. This is something different to do to give you guys a little different perspective. What that tells me though is that the Hellcat at 124.3, and you've got the Maxima at 107. You want to talk about a huge difference in sound level compared to a normal car. The car just sounds significantly louder and more aggressive, which I like. So anyway, guys, it's been a fun one. Let me know what you think. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the content. As always, I enjoy bringing it to you. So until next time, Racer X.